video, I have been talking a lot about our future and our dream and kind of like where we're headed as a family. And in order to understand the whole concept behind why we're so excited, I wanted Clint to hop on here and kind of tell our friends and family like the backstory and why it's relevant to where we're headed because we are so excited.
So, I don't know if everybody knows, and you may not, because I guess I don't get on here a lot and share everything about me. But my wife and I are both teachers, but we've also been the lead pastor of the Assembly of God Church here in Ketchikan, going on almost 9 years now, and I've been the lead pastor for the last 6 years. And this will be our 7th year. And before that, we served as the associate pastor and then as the children's pastor. And we also served in ministry at our last community that we taught at up in White Mountain. And so it's a really amazing story where God had brought us and how he brought us together and where he's led our family to, because I think maybe like 15 years ago, I would never have guessed that we would be here ministering and serving here in Ketchikan. So wanted to share that story for you because it's really that leading and that guiding that God has been doing is why we're so excited for where he's leading and the kind of the vision that he's been setting in our hearts and in our lives, for this upcoming year and for the next years following. And I guess kind of for what we consider like these God dreams of where God is bringing us as a family. So, my wife and I met 14 years ago, and when I met her, like it was just one of those things that I knew. And as we go back even farther, when I was in high school, I had just just a real direction that God was going to use me in ministry. And when Tori and I started dating, like there was just a part of me that knew that we were going to be married. And I think after 6 months of dating, I asked her to marry me. It was just one of those things that I just felt like she was the one. And it's like I knew. And so, when I get to talk to people about, relationships and, they're like, hey, she's the one or is he the one? It's just kind of like, for me, it was just like, my advice is like, you'll know, like God will tell you like she's the one, right? Or he's the one. There shouldn't be this question like, I'm not quite sure if they are or not. But anyways, like I wasn't serving in ministry in any capacity. I was actually pretty lost, in my faith. But one of the things that really like was a shining light for me was I saw a relationship with Jesus in Tori. Like there was a part of me that felt like, she made me like in a better relationship with God. And I think it was something that really drew me to her. And I was on this journey of being like, I was super passionate and excited about God, when I graduated high school and joined the Marine Corps. And in that process, I just got very lost. And so, Tori and I, we got married, and our first teaching job was up in Gamble. And it was one of those just wild experiences that, I took her up to the Bering Strait where I grew up. And I felt like she was going to be able to experience this life that, that I had the wonderful opportunity to experience. And anyways, like we served and we taught and we did all the sports and coached everything. And it was just a great year. But we weren't serving God. We talked about it, and I think we had popped into church, here and there, but nothing was very concrete. Nothing really stuck. We just weren't like I wasn't in a place to really like just to be there anymore. And so we moved to White Mountain, and it was in White Mountain that we had the opportunity to get into a relationship with someone who I consider just to be a wonderful mentor of mine, Danny Holzbauer, and we just love him and love Krista. But he was part of a ministry team that came up there to kind of like just minister with us and serve with us. And it was during that time that like when I met him and their team, we weren't serving God really in any capacity. But I was like questioning everything about him, because he's like, he came up and he's going to give this and give of his time. And it was like, he didn't expect anything in return. And I was like super on guard. I'm like, no, this doesn't sound right. Like, what's his angle? Nothing comes for free.
Yeah.
And I think it was my first real experience of just meeting a Christian that just absolutely wanted to just love on you, and just give freely. And it was just a new experience for me. And so we listened to him preach. It was a Sunday evening service that they did in White Mountain. And I remember coming home and, Tori and I are standing in our living room. And I just told her, like I want our family to just serve God. I want this relationship with not just me, but in our family. And I remember Tori just looking at me and saying yes. And her and I, with nobody else around, we laid hands on each other and we just prayed. We just prayed as a family that God, we want you to be a part of our life, and we want you, to just take hold of our family, and we want to serve you.
Well, and I think it was that time where I was wanting kids too. Kind of drove us. We wanted to bring up our family and serve God.
Yeah, and it was, I give the experience of being our life from that time on, it just changed. Everything about our lives changed. And I've had this very, I call it like an unorthodox relationship in the Christian perspective is, I never had, this very indoctrinated bringing up in the church. I had experiences in the church, and some good and some bad, but they were just different. And, I didn't really relate to everyone. And, but I knew, the one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to serve people, and I wanted to just love on people. And I think for me, that was the biggest drive for me in ministry, and in our relationship with God is, I wanted people to experience Him, but I wanted people to experience Him in a very unfiltered way, something that they just understood that there was this deep connection with them and how much God loved them. And that became kind of our ministry. Mm-hmm. And so we were teaching and ministering in White Mountain, and there was this year that just God just placed in our hearts that says you're going back to Ketchikan, you're going to go home. And I remember I had the feeling, and Tori had the feeling, and we sat there and we talked, and we were like, this is a big move, because we had no plans whatsoever on leaving. And in that, we said, we're going to pray about it for a month, for 30 days. We're going to separately pray about it. And then we're going to come back together at the end of those 30 days, and we're going to say, what did God say? And we came back after those 30 days, and we both said,
He wants us back home.
Yeah. Our answer was clear. God had given a vision for us. And I remember He gave me a very specific vision, but we ended up being okay, we're going home. And I think this was in October, November, of that year. And, we had no job lined up, we had no idea. We had one baby already. Bria was already born. Our second was in the oven. She was pregnant again. And so here we've got this growing family, and we've got no job. So we just kind of stepped out in faith. I was applying for teaching jobs, and I ended up getting one right before we moved down. But anyways, we moved here, and I remember stepping into the Assembly of God Church and just being we want to serve. What needs to be, where can we serve?
What needs to be done?
Yeah, what needs to be done? And they didn't have a children's pastor at the time, and we were like, we'll do it. And we served in that position, I think, for about a year. And then I think after a year, I stepped in as the associate pastor of the church. And at that time, we were doing a lot of street ministry and prison ministry. And I always tell people that I pursued my credentials because it opened up doors. I never really had an interest of going back to school and getting my pastoral license and stuff, but I found that like in our kind of like in the society that we live in and work in, that like you just need to have that like almost that labeling so that you get doors opened up to you. And that was the way that I was able to step into the prison and you know, and
have
I don't
people listen to you.
yeah,
like,
people
they
listen
would
and take you serious.
yeah.
I don't know, like yeah, it was just this, you know, it was just like these doors being opened, and you know, and so you know, I went back to school for 3 years, and you know, yeah, and you know, got my credentials, you know, as an official minister, and I, in this process, you know, as we're serving, you know, and we're serving our community, you know, we kept just asking the question, you know, what's the need and how can we feel it? And it was a really exciting time for us, you know, because I think it was like probably the time in our lives that like, I don't know, I guess I've felt the most like we just served the needs, and it was very relational, and it was very powerful for me, you know, just like growing, you know, as a person, and on who God and who Jesus was leading us to be. And in that process, you know, God kind of showed me this vision that like you were going to be the pastor, and you were going to pastor this church. And like we didn't have any idea how that was going to look or what that was going to look like. And so, you know, I think like a year later, you know, all of a sudden we're the pastors of the church, and we're doing this co-pastoralship, something that was very unique here in Ketchikan, and we serve along this like wonderful team at our church that we just absolutely love, and we're just so honored to serve with them. But you know, as we've done this, and like I said, we're going on our 7th year. You know, we always want to ask the question, God, are we where you want us to be? You know, today, and as we look forward, are we where where you want us? And you know, I feel like we are where God wants us, but we know that God is opening up some opportunities for us in this. And you know, as we've been reflecting, you know, about why we're doing this, you know, we said that the reason we're doing this, the reason we got into ministry in the first place, was because we love people. Like we love people, and we want to serve people, and we want to minister to people, and we want to be ministered to, and we want to grow in God. And that's been my heart, and I think that's where I want my heart to stay. You know, in our lives, is I want people to know Jesus as this very loving and wonderful Father who accepts us for exactly who we are and sees the potential in who we can become. And that's that excitement for me, is to just make sure we don't lose that vision. And as we've stepped into this new year, you know, God placed in December a very specific vision for us that we shared with the church, and it's become our church vision, is that, you know, God's called us, you know, to love people, you know, and to love all people, and that all people are important to God. And, you know, and it's not this radical vision, you know, it just brings us right back to who God is, you know, and who he has called us as the church. And I think that's been our excitement as opportunities have been opening up, you know, and, you know, Tori's, you know, presented like, hey, I got this opportunity. And I remember just looking at her and being like, nope, no, like that's a terrible idea. And
because nothing has worked in the past for me. So he's under the assumption that like this is just like a pipe dream where you're going to spend a whole bunch of money trying to do something and it not going anywhere. But
yeah, we just said like, you know, I've always been really open with Tori just to be like, you know, if this is something you're really interested in, you know, I want to support it. And if we feel like, you know, let's see, like, is this going to be wasted time or is this going to be valued time? And as we're seeing things kind of come about, you know, in our lives, we're seeing this like I don't know, like God keeps kind of opening up these really kind of unique opportunities.
Well, and not just opportunities, but bringing people into our lives in the most unexpected way and making connections that can only be driven by Him.
Yeah.
You know, I have made so many connections and stuff through what I'm doing that I never would have. And so we are continuously seeing God work in our lives and all of the aspects of it, that it's kind of getting us so excited because it's no longer coincidences. Like it's definitely him moving in our lives. There's too many coincidences for it to just be, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so we're super excited, and I think I wanted Clint to kind of share like where we have been, because it's kind of driving where we're going. And I feel like our lives, as we continue to understand what God wants for us, I feel like He's positioning us into something great. And we just kind of really wanted to share with you guys and kind of make sure that we are doing our part on encouraging people, you know, to be able to look at your life and making sure that you're following in line with what you want and what He wants for you.
Yeah, and I guess I wanted to just kind of end with just a prayer for just I guess our time. People come from very unique and different backgrounds, and in all of that, there's I guess this process that we don't always see things the same. And Tori and I have just really been speaking about how important kindness is. But I guess I just want to like kind of end with prayer that God would reveal Himself to you in a way that you can see just the goodness and the love of who He is, and and sometimes we're poor reflections of God's love and who Jesus is in us. But I just pray that sometimes we can see past that, and past those things that we would deem as failures, and just see this wonderful, loving God that sees the very, very greatness of who we are in Him.
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to